That's a picture of me when I first get in the Army. I don't have any stripes on yet. So I'm just a PVT. I'm sitting on a pipe fence at a resort area, and I've got my shoes shined like the captain always liked to see it. If you get ahead in the Army, you gotta have a shoe shine. Inside of a barracks, and that's the foot lockers. And that's the barracks, Camp Adair, Oregon. I'm posing there with my field pack under my arm and got my pistol on my belt, ready to march out and be a regular soldier. There's me with the prettiest girl on earth. I picked her out when she was just a little girl, and she grew up right beside of me, and she's still side of me. I'm sitting in the barracks. We just got her Timberwolf sewed on the uniform. I'm sitting there posing with a pretty girl. Got the clothes hanging up on my rack and everything's ready for inspection. We're out in the desert on maneuvers. Got a camp set up around there, and there's a anti-tank gun. It's camouflaged, sitting ready to act like we're gonna maneuver and gonna fire. We never had live ammunition on maneuvers, but then we went through the motions. Now here we're on bivouac out in the desert again, in the mountains of Mount Hood, in the high hills of Bend, Oregon. Got a pup tent, camouflage over the Jeep. Everything is prepared for maneuvers, and you can see what all kind of stuff we had to carry in the duffel bags and the army bags, and we slept head to head in them tents and pulled the flap over at night. That made it a little warmer in there. Stopped for a break. They give us a canteen of water, and we had to shave and use it for 3 days. That's all we had to wash or drink. So he's getting a shave before we start out. That's Blundell, my good friend. Yeah, we're out in the desert in Arizona, and I'm writing a letter. Found a quiet time. That's the spot where we came in after a 3-day run. We hadn't had a fresh drink of water, hadn't had a chance to shave. I was so tired I went and laid down in a bed of a stream. It was a dry stream, and a thunderstorm went by about 2 miles north of us, and in about half an hour, why, that creek come down running at about 6 foot of water. And there I was laying out in the sand in the bed of that stream. And the cooks in the kitchen tent heard the thing roaring and coming, and they knew I was down there in the creek bed, so they come and grabbed my sleeping bag and drugged me up on the bank. We watched the creek come on down. If they hadn't have come and got me, I'd probably still be floating towards the ocean. I'm resting up on the top there now writing a letter, but then that was at that same time. That's Tadaro, and I don't know who the other one is, but then Tadaro was one of the scout leaders of a platoon in the outfit that I had. They're getting ready for inspection. They got their rifles all cleaned and their combat uniforms on, out standing at parade rest. Camp Adair, Oregon. Our camp was in a orchard area, and they had hop vines and all kinds of apple trees. It was just taken over, and a camp was made right in the orchard at the edge of Corvallis, Oregon. That's some close friends, Sergeant Wright, Church, and Bill Blundell right there in the middle. He was a good friend of mine. And then down here on the end was a couple of Mexican boys. One was an Indian and the other one was a straight Mexican. The shorter one was a Mexican boy. They could speak English, but they understood English good. And the Indian on the second to the left, from the right there, was one of our best scouts, because he had the old Indian nose and ears, and he could just tell us what all he saw. But for intelligence, Blundell right in the middle there was the smartest man we had in our outfit. Church come from the Bronx in New York City, and he couldn't talk plain. He messed up the King's English, but then he was a good fellow to have along because he was stout. Lieutenant Graber is in charge of the outfit. He's on the extreme left there. There's in the Garden of the Gods down in Colorado. And we were just trying to be stout there. Bill Blundell, a buddy of mine, he got under there and tried to topple that thing over, but then it was a pretty solid rock and it didn't topple. There's another resort right close to the Garden of the Gods. They called it Cave of the Winds, and it's all red stone and eroded from rivers from Noah's flood. That's in the Garden of the Gods again, Colorado. That's a railroad. I don't know what the scene is now, but then we spent a lot of time along the railroad. If I could read the print on that building or that sign, I could describe it better. There's another desert picture. Camp Hyder. That's in the same desert. Those are trees that have fossilized, petrified, better word, and broken over and fallen down. But then we wasn't allowed to move them because that was a park area, and they didn't want any of that scenic area destroyed. That's one of the lava buttes in Arizona, and we'd get the Jeep out and we'd get back on the low end of that slope and try to climb the buttes, and we'd find deer and antelope up there on that and scare them down, and then the boys would be down around the base of the hill. Once in a while we'd get a shot at a deer. That tasted good when it went through the kitchen. That's two chaplains' assistant and me. We were good buddies. And I would always meet when we could and have lunch together, and we always saw each other on Sunday. And we'd go then in the afternoon and spend some time walking or talking or whatever. But that was two of my closest friends in the Army, chaplain's assistants. There we are, Bruce, Paul, and Don. That's the names of the chaplain's assistant.
What's that tent behind him? The chaplain place?
Yeah, that's where we'd meet.
Where was that located?
That's in the Arizona desert. Hyder, Arizona. That's a chapel constructed in the Arizona desert, and we'd meet there, and the chaplain would be up there at the altar. He'd do his service with the boys sitting out here on the benches, and it'd get up to about 100 in the daytime, and sand blowing and cover our tents up. We could find a half inch of sand on our tents when we'd wake up in the morning. That was the Arizona desert. That's a chapel in one of the camps, like Camp Adair, Oregon. Am I telling you the truth, Thomas?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I can't read the fine print. I wasn't looking. But that was a beautiful chapel. They fixed that one up nice. The Jews and the Catholics and the Protestants in the same chapel there. Calling home, we got a telephone there. Probably from Camp Adair when we was first in basic training. Well, you can see who it is in the mirror there. My ears look the biggest that I ever had a picture taken, both with the lights on and with the lights shining behind my head. That's a couple of boys dressed up for parade. I'm on the left, and chaplain's assistant. We're outside the barracks. Just got our picture taken while we was all dressed up. See how much neater my necktie was than his, and I had my hat cocked just right. He had his kind of pulled down a little bit slouchy, but then he wanted a picture, and we took a picture. Dressed up there in a uniform and standing at attention. Take my picture. We're saluting, practicing. That's Captain Way, one of our commanders, and he was the captain that went with me when we took our final test for being a patrol. And he said, Sergeant Ray, now don't get me lost. Let's try and get to the destination before 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, Captain, I don't even know where I'm at. Have you got a map? I said, I've got one here. He said, well, let's use yours. I don't know if mine's any good. And he was just doing that to put me on the spot. But we took off from a bridge. I could hear the truck. They had us in a curtained truck, and we couldn't see out. We rode for about 3 hours getting out into the country in the state of Maryland. And so when we went back down to the bridge, we walked back after they let us out. I said, we can orient ourselves here from this map, because I can see an orchard up on the hill. Boy, that orchard meant worlds to me, just getting oriented to know where I was at somewhere in the state of Maryland. And Captain Way said, now, Sergeant Ray, you got to get me there. I don't know where I'm at. And I said, well, let's start out from here. This is the spot on the map. We'll have to cross this creek 3 times, so we're not going to be dry when we get there. But we'll start out and we'll walk up this road as far as we can go from the bridge, and then we'll cross the creek again up in the country. We got there about 3 o'clock the next morning. We was the second outfit to get in there. Captain and I had walked about 4 miles, and we started just before dark in the evening, and through the thicket and the brush and the rough country. Hadn't ever been anything through there but rabbits and squirrels, but then we made our way. Couldn't wade the creek because it didn't go where we wanted to go, but we had to cross it 3 times. He was a good old captain. He was one of the ones that helped get me promoted a lot, pushed me up the line. That was a lieutenant that was a smart aleck. He was a second lieutenant, and they made a first out of him while we was here in the States. And they didn't even take him overseas with us. They just knew he would get shot. Smart aleck as he was, he wouldn't last long. So they left him here in the States to train more troops. That's one of my buddies in the INR platoon, and he was a good old dependable soldier. Lieutenant Graber, he was a Mennonite from Indiana, and he was always talking rough to me and letting on like he was just mad as he could be. We got into Ruhr, Germany, and he said, Sergeant Ray, you take 3 men and go down this Ruhr River and go in one of them windows down there in the town and set up an observation post on the other side on the street. I said, Lieutenant Graber, I would just as well hand you my gun and let you shoot me right here, because if I go down that river and climb in that window, there's a machine gun. It shoots every night. I've been there just across from it, and they shoot that machine gun out that window every night. And you think I'm going to take 3 men and all of us get killed? You just shoot me right now. He says, well, I'll send a message back to Corps that we got our orders from Corps to put somebody in that building because they knew there was a window there. And I said, well, somebody back at Corps doesn't realize that there's Germans, soldiers on the other side of that river. Well, and it wasn't as wide as from here to the tree out there, less than 50 feet across to the building, and they had just built the buildings astraddle of that river, and Americans had come up and stopped on one side, and the Germans went ahead and held their position on the other side. And I just told him, go ahead and shoot me, because I wasn't about to go down there and stick my head in that window where they had a German machine gun. So they didn't send us. They sent Duchesneau, the Indian boy I showed you back in the other picture. He crossed the river at night and went about 2 miles up in the country, and he carried some pigeons with him, and he'd write a note in Indian language. We had interpreters, and he told what he saw, and he'd send it back from his shell hole position up about 2 miles from where we was, out in the country, away from that town. That's one of the proudest days of my life, when the general came to review the troops. They appointed me the sergeant to carry the flag of the United States, and I was the front flag man in the parade of the 104th Timberwolf Division in front of Terry De La Mesa Allen, the new general. That's another one of the parade days at the division parade. There's General Allen, commander of our division, and some soldiers standing there listening to him talk. That's our company. It's got the name underneath there. Can't make it out, but a date probably. I can see Paul Ray written right there, pointing up to the boy right there in about the fourth place, third or fourth. But that was our company A of the 413th Infantry Battalion of the 104th Division. No, it said second headquarters, didn't it? Second headquarters battalion, yeah. That was a headquarters company of the second headquarters instead of Company A. I moved back and forth between them two companies. I had to change my address about once every 2 months because they had me up at the headquarters tent, and then they'd say, well, now you go back down to 2nd Battalion, and you be there in headquarters company. Then first thing you know, I was back in Company A and the 1st Battalion. But then I met a lot of guys, made a lot of good friends that way. That's our squad, INR platoon. I can remember most of their names, and I'm standing at the end on the top of the rack on the left side. That's me up there. Good bunch of buddies. We all treated each other like brothers because we knew we was going to be a shooting and a hiding and a walking and everything. Had to trust each other. This boy here, Glick, played a guitar.
What number? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As
Glick was his name.
From the left.
From the left.
Top row.
He was accomplished musician, and he'd entertain us playing the guitar, and we'd sing all kind of funny songs. 5'2", eyes of blue, you can't guess what she can do. Has anybody seen my gal? 5'9", eyes that shine, a face that looks like Frankenstein. Has anybody seen my gal? That's the kind of stuff we'd sing just pass the time away of evenings. That's the officers of the outfit in 413th Infantry Regiment, and we were all proud of them officers because they overseas had to be good friends. They didn't want anybody getting down on them, and that was just a picture showing them in their army gear. That's another picture in front of the barracks in Camp Carson, Colorado. That supply room was where we'd go and get all of our uniforms. If we needed a new pair of shoes or anything for our supplies, why, we went in that door right there and the supply sergeant got it for us. That's taken outside the barracks at Camp Carson, Colorado, just before we shipped out to go overseas. You can see the shadow of a man there doing a salute, reporting that All the men are present and accounted for, sir. We wanted to see what our outfit would look like in front of the barracks before we all left, because we knew we'd never all get back together again.